Anybody online?
No, they're not.
Okay, but the phone is up front.
Yeah, I just.
I would testify only if I were asked to take a question about it.
Hi, Horace.
Hi, Mike.
So what is this? This is America's,
It's the National Broadband Plan, and that's the chapter on education. I just thought it'd be, trying to make sure we align stuff. These are all like, here's the governor's education reform plan that got what North Carolina did. Here's the state strategic IT plan, which I used to write and help write. And here's the National Broadband Plan, the governor's four cornerstones of reform. I just want to make sure we align, you know.
yeah, no,
Jeff,
absolutely.
yeah. Like Jeff said this morning, you know, on PSIC, I mean, we got this great resource here, PSIC, and the tree.
Yeah, and we have not drugged that in sufficiently into the broadband plan. That's actually a very important component of broadband. And we got Michael Britt, who is literally a national leader, you know, in the whole broadband side of public safety. I mean, he's on national committees, actually creating the architecture that's going to roll out nationally.
I don't think I knew that, really.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, and he's very much in alignment with what we're doing, and he's taking that back to these national committee meetings and saying, hey, look, here's what Arizona's doing. Here's why you need to, you know, here's why you need to have a fiber infrastructure, you know, carrying all those messages back there, and they're listening apparently. His biggest problem is he's still got to take the people who are holding onto their little old analog radios and peel their fingers off of those off of those radios to let them go.
It's so funny. It's so funny.
I still don't understand what's been stopping the federal government from doing essentially the two highways thing at the federal level. I mean, I know there's been two bills that have moved through Congress. Both have died in Congress. I don't know why.
I think that part of what we should consider putting in the strategic plan is what I would call our Arizona's national legislative agenda. We have a lobbyist back there.
Yep.
And you know.
I agree. And we can hold ourselves out as a prototype for what they can do.
Agreed.
Right.
Just like you did in California. Absolutely.
Good morning, Michelle.
Good morning.
Good morning, Michelle.
Madam Chair.
Okay. What time is it really? Oh, okay, good, I got 2 minutes.
Just in time strategic planning.
My car, I'm like, oh, yeah, plenty of time.
Right across another committee you served on here. Vice Chairman.
That is a remote connection to the projector.
But there's a bundle of software.
Oh, so you just can't.
You can't just connect that, right?
Unusual.
You should have known that. Well, I guess, you know, it would be good to project.
Would it?
Yeah.
We can do it the old-fashioned way, I think.
I have a connector.
Are you going to be able to project?
I can, or you can, I can send you the latest.
I'm not going to be able to project unless
I'll
I'm my link
Yeah, I'll
on my
Oh.
computer.
But can she, if she projects off of hers, you can do that, right?
Yeah.
So you use
So
your
it's still
computer.
on.
Yeah, except that then people won't see her presentation. shouldn't interfere.
No, shouldn't. Just trying to figure out how I'm gonna get the island folks compared to this team.
Henry, this is the education, chapter in the National Broadband Plan, if you're.
Oh, I see. All right, thank you.
California's great, you might take a look at this too.
So this is from the National Broadband Plan?
You're right.
I like this.
Some of it may not really fit the state. It's interesting to see, they've done a lot of research.
So if I unplug this from here and plug it into yours?
Yeah, not the base.
Okay, well, we're getting set up for the projection. Why don't we go ahead and go around and who all is here?
Good. Have we dialed in or do whatever we need to do on that?
There's nobody on the phone now. I think so. I don't know why that's the case there.
Okay. Michelle Moran?
Brad Zerby?
Craig Jameson. Mike Whipple.
Bart Frieden. Emerson Yearwood. Henry Goldberg.
Jeff Crane and Mike Golden.
Anybody online?
Nope.
There are a few folks kind of at the last second saying they want. So today we're going to, I thought we'd focus on a couple areas. One is to specifically look at the recommendations. I've been incorporating the comments that people have been making, and so I thought we'd review through that with an eye toward, are the recommendations still, do they still seem reasonable, and then what about the comments and suggestions that are think those are reasonable and acceptable. And then the other thing I thought we'd focus on today is, well, a couple other things. One is, how do we continue to get further input into the recommendations? And then the third thing is, given all the material that people are sending out, can we share in the review, and each of us take some documents to review and think about how and what portions or what messages we want to bring out of those documents. I sure the heck can't get through every single document. So I want to spend some time talking about.
What would you like to reject, Michelle?
I just sent you the latest version of our working version of the recommendations. Yeah, there it is. You can project that.
Emerson, this is the National Broadband Plan chapter on education.
Okay, so within here, I have been incorporating documents. I think tracking is on. Should be in that version. And so why don't we just start with the first recommendation. So if we focus on the recommendations themselves, let's go through what we have. Okay. Okay, so for recommendation 1, facilitate the build-out of high-speed broadband infrastructure by the private sector to provide for the needs of all Arizonans. I didn't get any specific comments about that through our email discussion. What are folks thinking about that at the moment? Does it still seem reasonable?
There was a last-minute comment by Cox that we should incorporate the private sector into this, which is, of course, what it really says there. I don't think she said anything more specific than what's already there, but here's her comment right here, Susan Annabelle. She said, I agree with Patty's recommendations to take a strong incentive and cooperative approach with the private sector on the broadband adoption issue. That's what that said.
Okay.
So what's her recommendation? I'm not quite understanding it.
Just make sure the private sector is incorporated into it.
And, she actually wants the phrase private sector in the language.
You can use your language. I think we,
Cooperate, deployment of broadband services in cooperation with the private sector, perhaps.
Well, she was responding to Patty's comments, which were around recommendation number 3.
that's,
Oh, okay.
So Patty gave suggestions for the action item, both for the recommendation and the action items in recommendation 3. And then Susan's response was, I agree with Patty, that, or to take a strong incentive and cooperative approach with the private sector on the broadband adoption issue.
And it was about adoption
As opposed to build
build
out.
out, right, okay. Got it.
she's talking about their program that they have with school,
Right.
done as a pilot. And, I know they want to expand it. And what they do is they provide the router, or whatever you want to call it, the machine, for free, and discount the broadband price down like 2/3 from what the normal price is. And, they kind of pioneered it. Other people do it in other locations. This is to get, the primary motivation is to get kids broadband access, because what they're finding in their research are teachers are going berserk trying to teach to classes where maybe 1/3 of their kids don't have broadband. It's bifurcated the class. They're finding there's a tremendous difference between the kids who have it at home and those that don't.
Yeah.
The idea is to get every kid some kind of a device. There's a couple ways to do that. Schools can provide it, like Paradise Valley has devices that kids can take home, and they have a wireless network so they can connect into the internet through the school. And then, there's the Cox program, and, but that's what they're talking about, I think, primarily.
Do they provide computers also as part of those programs?
Yeah, they do. Cox actually, in their pilot, they did. I think, the school did, I think. I think the school did about 350 left. The school did. Provided a lot of us.
I'm online right now.
Okay. What does everybody else think? Do we like it seems to be focused on build out by the private sector. Does that still seem?
So I guess I would add to satisfy that recommendation or facilitate the build out of high-speed broadband infrastructure by the private sector. Oh, it says it already.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Provide for the needs of all residents. Okay, good.
I think it's fine the way it is.
Yeah, I think it's fine the way it is
You
too.
almost have to do it that way because of the gift clause in these states constitution.
Yeah, well, the state's never going to build it out.
Jeff?
But as opposed, well, I guess everybody else would be filing, right?
Right.
Okay.
Do you want to leave room for the government to in it, so put in cooperation with the private sector, that way it doesn't put everything on the private sector necessarily, but.
You know, I would. I mean, for example, municipalities, when they're
Right.
digging up intersections, the best thing they can do is put some conduit across that intersection, so if anyone needs it, you know, there are times or opportunities where the government might play
Right.
a minor role.
Yeah, that came to be part of the policy that Queen Creek, for example, established in their charters after the fact, and I think Goodyear did it, and this was in response to a consultant's recommendation, and it came out of it's called the Loma Linda, California enhancements, if you will. That's what the first city that really did it, where they really concentrated on getting a city or a community fiber ready, if you will. They took the lead and built
How about facilitate the build out of high-speed broadband infrastructure by governments and the private sector?
Or you can soften it by saying by the private sector in cooperation
In cooperation with governments, yeah, and then plural on that, because it could be any level of government, right?
Right.
Do we need to put high speed in, just to make it shorter, because broadband implies high speed, or do you want to keep that word in there?
That's what's missing in the rural areas.
Um,
They have
It should probably say
Well-
high-speed digital infrastructure.
I would actually either facilitate the build out of high-speed broadband infrastructure through policy and in cooperation, through policy initiatives and in cooperation with the private sector.
So the sub-bullet tends to go to the policy side.
Which one?
The second bullet.
sub-bullet.
Sub-bullet underneath
Okay.
what you just read.
All right.
Well, and so it also doesn't jump to the how. So what this does now is facilitate the build-out of a high-speed broadband infrastructure by the private sector in cooperation with the government to provide for the needs of all citizens. That just means, we're still relying on the private sector, but we're going to partner.
And the plan is that every one of these are backed up by 1 to 3 paragraphs.
Right, that's right.
The main
To
document.
explain the context.
Yeah, we are trying to put everything into this
Into
sentence.
one sentence.
Instead of the government, though, I would say in cooperation with governments.
Right.
Governments.
Okay.
Not just governments and government entities.
Well, how about government entities is a better phrase, yes.
Government,
Government entities, right.
a lot of, like, you.
That could be state agencies, that could be a municipal, that could be, right.
Government entities is probably a better,
Right.
Okay.
than agency,
Okay, so we'll say in cooperation with government entities.
Right.
Okay.
Good.
Any more on that one?
Well, only that the sub-bullet might
Yeah.
move to back where you start to break down the recommendation rather than that sounds more like not the top level, but we're going to come to a page on recommendation 1.
Right.
That seems to me.
So that whole subparagraph should be moved to that place where we talked
Yes.
about.
Right, so I didn't want to go there because I wanted to make sure we talk about whether we still agree it should be a sub-bullet. So that was someone's suggestion that it's a sub-bullet to a build-out as opposed to being a standalone recommendation.
That's where it fits logically. Obviously, that is our front and center right now. We have hearings today on it. I mean, that thing is important as anything in the strategic plan.
But I think what Mark,
You're looking at the table of contents, not the body of the report.
what Mark was saying, that this belongs in this recommendation, but in the text
Right.
later on, not in the,
I agree.
Or as an action item.
Right.
or as an action item, but
Well, and so the first paragraph addresses 1402, the highways bill, and the second paragraph addresses the office.
Yeah, but they're both mentioned and fleshed out later. Again, you're looking at the table of contents. You really need to be brief here.
Yeah, that's true.
And
Okay.
I like action items. I think that's a good idea.
So we're saying that one action item to building out the infrastructure is to develop new rights-of-way permitting standards and procedures.
Yes.
Right, but I think when you get to that section, you'll find some similar stuff.
Yeah, probably.
And that text has to be
Right.
merged in.
Michelle, would it be easier to go to the actual sections where you're wording out the recommendations and then worry about the table of contents at a later time?
Well, I don't view, so I know we're in the table of contents, but I'm not viewing this as table of contents necessarily. So I'm looking at these as the actual recommendations. They may be listed in the table of contents, but because below we have the recommendation and then the action item.
Remember, she wanted to do this deductively, so we're doing it top down. Everything will flow from this wording.
Right.
So.
If we think these are right, then we can start to dig into the action.
right, that's logical.
Does it still seem okay?
Well, let's not do that then.
Definitely not in Arizona.
Okay, so we're going to make this an action item under recommendation 1. Everyone agree with
Yeah,
that?
so you can cut that and
So we'll
move it
move it down. Okay, what about the third recommendation? Advocate to increase the use and adoption of broadband and computer technology.
That's right out of the National Broadband Plan. It's one of the 3 things. I think we want to do more than advocate, though,
Right.
Galen?
That was my only,
It says advocate on number 3. What else do we want to do? I want to do actual programs to help increase the adoption and use of
and
broadband.
I think we list some programs when we get to recommendation 3. We do list, libraries or low-cost, low-income programs.
You don't have to use the word advocate.
Exactly.
Right.
Just drop it at advocate, just start with the word increase, that's a more action.
Yeah, there you go.
Increase
I
the
like
use
that.
and adoption of broadband and computer
There's
technology.
Yeah.
Because advocate is just, we're just going to say we're going to do it.
Yeah.
I'm more inclined to substitute something I can't name yet for advocate with just
Well,
Actively increase.
Promote.
well, see, then,
Promote and increase.
Enable, drive. Drive is an action word.
It's happening at so many levels of government, though. That's the problem. It's happening at the federal level, the state, the
Well,
local. The three
are we,
things in the National Broadband Plan was get the infrastructure in. There's a lot of people out there that don't know how to use it, so make it so that they can use it. And then they need a place where they can use it, so the public computer centers,
Well,
like
you
the
know.
libraries. That's where the grants flowed from. And that's one of the three.
how about just say cause the increase? Or precipitate the increase?
Precipitate.
No.
Sounds like
I
rain.
like the increase.
Yeah.
So what's your concern, though? You're
My
concerned, how much
concern
can
is
you
I'm
really
just
increase?
reacting to not starting with the word increase, but the,
I'm not sure.
the eventual,
Increase is pretty direct, pretty action
Yeah.
I mean,
A lot of ways you can go with that one.
we want it increase, but there are some things you have to do
We'll list one of the
as
action
part
items.
of that. Just not advocate, you need to
Drive.
drive it, you need to understand what causes, you need to be the focal point.
All one of the action items.
So they all
Yeah,
go to the
those fall under the action items.
You
I-
just say
I still
increase,
think
that's spot on with government.
Advocate is not a strong enough action word. Increase
I agree.
starting with increase seems a little presumptive. So I'm looking for something in the thesaurus for the word drive.
Well, we've been presumptive so far, so.
You
Like
can put
that
promote.
now.
Okay, you can put promote. Promote the use and adoption of broadband.
Promote the increase, yeah.
Promulgate.
I would think that
Better.
the more important issue is
That's a better word.
figuring out or stating who we're trying to increase the use and adoption by. I mean, it doesn't say here by the target, who the target is.
It's people that don't use the internet. It's students that don't have home internet access. It's
Right.
people that don't know how to use.
So I mean, how do you say that?
Well, we say all Arizonans.
You said that in
There you go.
Well,
You could say it again.
yeah, and in fact, it is all Arizonans, because no matter what level you're using it,
Right.
you can be
Okay.
using it more.
I was gonna ask if you wanted the adjective ubiquitous in there.
No, that's more has to do with the broadband availability rather than the use of it.
Okay.
That's how it's been used.
Right.
And ubiquity is the impossible dream. So
But the FCC's just,
When they use the word
They use that
ubiquitous,
word all
they're
the time.
talking about the hardware. They're not talking about the people. So
Right.
it'll confuse.
So we have promote and we have increase on the table.
or drive.
Facilitate.
Okay,
We're gonna facilitate. We're gonna do it.
Look up the word drive.
so drive
Drive works for me.
Drive works.
drive the use and adoption.
Drive sounds powerful.
Yeah. That's good. That covers everything we want to do.
Okay, so let's say,
Promulgate's good. Not everybody knows what promulgate.
not everybody's gonna do this.
okay, so
Probably the best word.
Crusade.
Crusade
Drive.
4.
drive the use and adoption of broadband and computer technology
That covers it.
throughout the state
I don't know.
What are we
by all
saying?
Arizonans,
Okay, well,
by every citizen.
I think
we're
gonna kill this.
Yeah.
Our time and our.
Let's just go for
Drive
go.
now.
Put that in the executive summary.
Well, I'm changing my version just to say increase.
So you still like the word increase?
Yeah.
Okay.
You like which one?
Just drop the advocate to, and say increase the use and adoption of broadband and computer technology.
Well, it was between, the last one on the table was drive. So drive or
That's
increase.
still my preference, to substitute advocate with drive rather than starting the sentence with increase.
Drive to increase.
So you're saying drive to increase.
Or promote the increase.
Now we're advertising agents.
Starting with increase just seems like we're gonna do it. Not,
Okay, why don't you say this?
Drive, you don't need
How
increase.
about this? Drive the increased use and adoption of broadband.
Well,
The word is,
How about spread, maybe spread the use of,
how about drive toward full adoption
use and
of
adoption of
or
broadband?
broaden,
use and adoption
right,
of
broaden.
broadband.
we are going to,
Broadband, that's what
Broadband.
the
what
word-
we're doing is
Broadband.
increase use and adoption. I mean, that's what we're doing. We are creating the availability or increasing the availability, but we're
I give up. I cede to the doctor,
Right, so increase
who has a PhD at the table. I cede to the
some
doctor.
Chinese literature.
So I have to give you a joke about the word precipitate. There's a saying, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Another variation is that if you're not part of the solution, you're the precipitant.
Yeah, I like her idea of adding, we're talking about Arizona citizens, talking about people. Increase use of adoption broadband.
Well, then we have to add it everywhere. We've already said that.
It's unique, I think, to this recommendation. Not everybody needs to.
Is the e-government yet a separate breakout? It's like under number,
It's, it's somewhere in here.
because if it's under number 3, then that says citizens and organizations. If it's not under number 3, I'd have to look.
Well, let's see, well, okay, so I'll make a little note here.
Should also change these numbers now that we
I
got
know,
rid of
yeah. I know, may include,
What changed the number?
Something
Oh, we
like-
deleted
We got
number
rid
2.
of number 2.
What was number 2?
That's that sub-bullet.
It was the
That's
sub-bullet.
now moved.
Okay.
yeah, we'll get all that lined up. Okay. Okay, are we done with that one?
Yes.
Okay, so we're saying for recommendation 2, increase the use and adoption of broadband and computer technology. And we'll think about whether we add all Arizona,
Or by Arizona
by
citizens.
citizens or whatever. If we don't pick it up
Maybe
later,
put that in
maybe we'll come back.
parentheses.
Yeah, I put that in my copy and
Increased use, it sounds as if we, like, we're really talking about trying to make it ubiquitous throughout the state, right? So,
Yeah, but there's always outliers. You never reach ubiquity.
I know,
You may
you're trying to
approach
aim
it, but
for it, though, you're aiming for it in this recommendation.
But you know you're never going to get there. It's
Well,
like
that's
an irrational goal to.
Zeno
We've actually
Zeno
identified
demonstrated.
We will never arrive at a definition of broadband either, so here we go. We have 2 impossibles inside.
We are the 1%.
I mean, even if we just added 5 more citizens with connectivity, we've increased the use and
Oh, so aim
I think our metrics
aim for ubiquitous
You know, that's.
adoption of broadband and computer technology throughout the state. Would that be better?
Frankly, I think that the idea, if you eliminate the word advocate 2 and just increase the use of adoption of broadband, you could say substantially increase or whatever you want to. I mean,
I'm fine.
we spent 6 hours on this and we probably need.
We already have.
Yeah,
Okay.
we need to move on.
Yes, I'm gonna take a little note though about your statement, because I think we need to work that in somewhere in the language. Okay. Okay. How about number 3 now? Engage and reward broadband innovation and research.
And Brad, that's where I built out some stuff about GeekU and National Lambda Rail and higher performance networks.
Yeah, that's your world, and I got that. I hate the way it's worded. How are you gonna reward that? I mean, are you gonna have cash prizes, you know?
Well, incentivize or
Yeah.
is really a better word.
That's
than
really what I was
An
thinking. That really
incentive.
fits with Annabelle's comment.
You know,
Is that really a better word?
I think that.
even.
How do we intend?
Yeah, exactly.
There is a concept here that needs to be understood. That is, this is
Reward
the
is-
state strategic broadband plan. This is going to be, in fact, representative of the entire state, including those who are in the rural areas, and something that they can adopt also.
Right, but Mike Golden, how did the city of Phoenix capture TGen and the International Genomics Consortium? They put together a $120 million package of real estate and incentives.
Right.
I know, but
That's big science.
Right.
what's your point?
Provide
Okay,
incentives.
my
I just
point
don't like
is this.
incentivize. Provide
The,
incentives.
who is the engager and the rewarder?
Well, this is a table of contents.
But here's what we can do. We
Okay.
can encourage
These are
the
recommendations.
development of, where's the rest of the phrase up there?
This is ASU, U of A, National Lambda Rail stuff.
We can be in conversations with ASU and U of A and with other institutions, basically acting as a catalyst
Catalyst,
What we're
good
saying is we
word.
want the citizens of Arizona to, in fact, provide some process by which, at all levels of citizenry, to engage and reward broadband innovation and research in their own environments.
So how about we
We
catalyze
get to have pages about this later.
I understand that.
This is the table of
So how about
contents.
we just make it be catalyze, broadband innovation and research?
I like the word catalyze.
Perfect.
That's an odd,
Okay.
variation
Or
on
be a
it.
I like
catalyst,
it, catalyzes,
or, yeah.
Yeah.
Michelle, you're the one who's doing all this, how do you describe it to people when you're saying you're gonna do GigU and all this super advanced stuff?
Well, we usually describe it as, to be effective in that space, innovation, research, e-health, education, you have to have a robust infrastructure. So it's an enabler to expanding innovation and research. I mean, anymore, we cannot do research on our campus or anywhere without the technology, without the
So
infrastructure.
you're actually not thinking about, innovation and research with regard to broadband technology?
No.
You're thinking of it in a much broader sense.
This
It's more the high performance end.
to me is about how you enable the innovation and research.
Okay, what she's talking about is let's say U of A discovers something like a new type of cotton or it's a new type of research, getting it out there and like in the health, like telemedicine. Let's say U of A came up with something with telemedicine. You're talking about disseminating the research stuff that you guys come up with.
Well,
at
that's
the
one
university level, right?
aspect, but in that example, I might be a researcher with a cotton field and I'm in my field collecting data and I'm shipping my data back to my server somewhere to later analyze it around,
It's
okay,
about
what happened in
collaborative
my
research.
crop?
Right.
So to do that, you gotta have some kind of broadband infrastructure.
The
wireless
ERISA
or
proposal
something.
that I
Yeah.
wrote for $2 million that Michelle was a part of was to pass terabytes of genomic and proteomic output from machinery to ASU rather than driving a station wagon with tape and hard drives across 8 miles.
Big science tends to have
Big
data.
science.
What Mark's talking about isn't like transmitting data from cotton fields. What he's talking about is the super high-end stuff that's not gonna get out into the colonies. It's gonna be stuff like at ASU, U of A, GigU, the supercomputer
Well,
centers.
it's like interconnecting researchers,
Yes.
at research
Yeah,
facilities.
that's what he wants to make sure is in this report. That's the spirit in which he wrote that,
But also within that are the test bed concepts of a national lambda rail and, putting high schools on GigU and lambda rail.
Oh, really? Okay. Well,
It's not going for the lowest common denominator. What is broadband? 4 megabits per second or better. This is dealing with the gigabits and better end of it.
I think Michelle should worry because she's in this space all the time.
Let me
Wait a
Let me
second.
introduce these folks that just came in, by the way. These are guests that I told Keith Montgomery and his associate, Mike, that this was an open meeting. This is part of the task group for strategic planning for the state of Arizona, for ABD, for our now called Digital Arizona Council. And I invited Keith to attend here, and shortly later today we'll be having some meetings with Keith.
And who do they represent?
Keith represents, used to be part of MCI early on, but now, that's a long time ago though. Your current
I've been in the broadband industry for a long time. I was executive with MCI. We had a small company called I-10 that worked on rural America. Actually worked with Galen on helping you guys figure out a strategy to get middle mile networks built for all of those. Right now I'm the senior broadband director for ICF, and our large contract that we support is the RUS BIP program. So we helped evaluate all the 2,200 applications. We're doing the post awards for them. But we also do a lot of other areas with it. We do a lot with the Energy Star, which is the electric program piece that you have. We're also one of the premier companies for environmental evaluations controls. So a lot of the BTOP networks use us for those. So it's a pretty decent kind of program across the way. And we're now starting to work with some of the states. Have a practice on the East Coast. ICF has a very large West Coast operations. We're actually one of the advisors for CBC that's building the middle mile network on the west side of California up to Nevada.
Anyway, so a picture was worth 1,000 words. I invited him to come and listen in. as a part of a
An area
public
we
meeting.
can help in is energy and environment. There's a whole chapter in the National Broadband Plan. I don't even know if we have a task force on it.
Well, we don't, but, I mean, little at a time, folks.
You were an evaluator, you were a grant evaluator?
We walk before we run.
Wow, really?
Okay, so,
So welcome, and you guys are welcome to come up to the table.
Pull up a
or
chair.
hang out in the back, whichever way.
Help us with the wording.
And if you're here, you have to contribute.
Yeah.
Can't
Yeah,
just-
exactly. Yeah, we're struggling with
Yeah.
word by word.
So just structurally, this is literally the table of contents, and thus everything here has to be succinct. Each one of these breaks down to 4 to 8 recommendations below it, action items. And then later in the document, each of those action items breaks out into explanatory text. So you're looking at the top level of 3 levels, and we're trying not to be particularly wordy at this level.
So plain English is the rule? Is that what we?
I didn't say that.
Well, I'm just thinking maybe we should,
First thing people will read, so yeah, I think you
So
want to make it.
here's what I put so far, and I'm happy to sort of take this one away and continue to think about it and get some input around. What I have so far is catalyze and enable an environment of discovery, innovation, and research.
Right.
Not real specific, but it's
And I like not putting the word broadband.
because it's not about broadband
It's not,
discovery. It's about
Collaboration.
research.
Collaboration
and-
and research, yeah.
Yeah.
well, broadband is foundational,
Right.
or which broadband is foundational?
Yeah, but this is in the context of
I
the whole
understand.
paragraph that talks about nothing but broadband, so.
Okay. So let's go
Okay.
to the next one, which is now
Do
recommendation
we have a different time or not for the gray meeting? Is that been moved?
Not yet.
that now says
Committee on Transportation.
create a robust statewide e-health network environment. And I did pass this along to the e-health, I forget what it's called, the e-health task.
Telehealth, I think.
Telehealth or something. And so I assume they're working on it. I haven't received
Yeah, we should
anything
probably
yet.
replace e-health with telehealth, I think.
Actually, telehealth includes telemedicine, I think most people get it, that telehealth is a process by which you bring health virtually,
Not just a healthcare class, it's
not just telemedicine. I mean, telemedicine is a real.
So this is really an application layer, e-learning and telehealth for us are applications over the network. The only place that statement falls short for me is on the issues of medical licensing for procedures, for reimbursement, unless we assume that telehealth network environment pro forma includes those elements.
I agree, Dr. Pitt's over and over and over again messages, if you don't change the business models around telehealth, then it never gets started. And so this does not address that.
I believe the sub-recommendations do. I'm just wondering if any nod to that.
There needs to be a word or two in
Yeah, well, the word network is actually creates maybe a false impression that we're trying to create a network
Right.
that's
Yeah.
going to be
Right.
a silo type situation.
How about creating a robust statewide telehealth environment? And just take the
Environment or
Take the network.
or ecosystem is even better.
Ecosystem?
Yeah.
Statewide telehealth
What do you guys think about it?
ecosystem.
Just one question since you asked us to participate. The global piece for all of where telehealth is called mHealth now.
What is it called?
mHealth,
M-
for mobility that they're using them in. And I guess the question I would have is, there's a different, like for me, there's some differences between an e-health, a telehealth, and a mobile health. So what is it that you want to create? Is it the whole process piece? Or is it capabilities and apps that will
Well,
be
I
used for
wouldn't
those?
go with mHealth because it's too limiting.
Okay.
There's a lot of teleradiology that's not mobile. They just have terabytes of imaging to move.
Right, because VA would call it a telehealth network, or
Right.
telehealth capability to connect in with their e-records, the medical records. So do you want to get that far into the process, so that you're integrating the process?
In the sub-elements, not in the table.
Yeah, it's more than a network because it is the business model,
Right.
reimbursement model.
Reimbursement, medical licensing.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think ecosystem or environment is probably better.
Hey, Ralph.
What's the nature of the question with telemedicine?
This is his expertise.
Yes, but we're working on the table of contents, not
Okay.
all of the stuff under. So we're kind of holding the very top level where brevity is very important. We're going to come to a breakout of all the recommendations relative to telehealth later if we ever get past the table of contents.
Okay.
So I vote for statewide telehealth ecosystem.
Ecosystem, yeah. I think that describes it.
Yeah, because it's all of it. It's
Yeah.
the mobility piece, it's the teleradiology,
It's the
telepsychiatry.
financial piece, it's
Financial
the,
piece.
it's the
Also
understanding.
follow up after a discharge from a hospital, because that's where the biggest savings is going to be.
Right. But all of that's encompassed in that ecosystem.
Wouldn't it be better to be more specific, like say create telehealth applications, business models, and
They'll be more specific later. Again,
Yeah.
it's the table of contents.
Yeah, I think when we explain what we mean by ecosystem in the the expansion of this, that's where we say that.
What I like about ecosystem is that it implies more than one thing,
Right. Yes.
and it's not too specific to where
Right.
we're locked
And
into
ecosystem
something.
implies
We can
synergy
shape it
with
and however we
supply
need to.
chain.
It also implies we won't get this done just from this group.
Right.
We have to bring a bunch of players into the
Right. Now, the subcommittee may have something to say about how it's worded, so this may change further. I'm sure all these will change further.
Yeah,
But,
Alan and I will get together.
yeah, I sent this all to him, and I don't know if he's passed it to the group yet, but I'll try to follow up in a few days. Okay, so what we have is create a robust statewide telehealth ecosystem.
Perfect. I like that.
Does that seem reasonable for the moment?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Number 5, implement information technologies, broadband, and collaboration/training to promote education improvement and opportunity.
So I'm the co-chair of that committee. Yeah, that covers it, I think. Thanks, Galen. That's what we're trying to do. I put the word "and" between collaboration/training because there really are two different things. We've already wordsmithed this thing anyway.
Yeah.
So,
I'm okay with that.
broadband and, okay, I gotta take an and out.
What we need to do in this space is get the broadband there. A lot of teachers, not all, don't know how to use this technology. The advantage of the technology is an unbelievable collaboration opportunities. And the whole goal is, of course, to improve education. So I think that captures. Any thoughts?
No, that's pretty good. I think the rural health education groups that are doing it talk a lot about adoption, using some of the social media to get in there so you can capture all those those pieces in with that. I think that works well.
One of the things we talked about is possibly in rural areas using the school as a after-hours medical center so that people can.
That is, as was pointed out, by the way, that is fraught with so many policy and liability issues that have to be done at a district level that you cannot mandate from the state.
We're not mandating, but we're saying it's a possibility to use that as.
It's already being
As a community center.
Galen, you produce a model and then.
That's
Though
true.
I do have a comment on the elements of this recommendation. In the old days, we referred to the 3 legs of the e-learning stool as being the technology, the teacher training, and the content.
Yep.
Here you have 2 pieces that are the technology, information technologies and broadband, but you don't have the content.
It's missing content, which is very.
Well,
So if you can concatenate the information technologies and broadband together and go to some word or words.
It's about electronic curriculum and content.
Yeah, curriculum, electronic
I
curriculum.
thought information technologies was the curriculum, but I guess I'm wrong.
No.
No, I think that's
Take you more to the
Yeah, that
hardware
sounds
side.
You gotta get, that's the whole idea, is get that
I
content.
know.
And you really need, well, now I'm doing that, but you need professional development in there, not
What else?
training.
Collaboration and training.
Okay.
We'll call it
Collaboration.
professional
We'll call it
development.
professional development. That's what teachers like.
Collaboration and training sounds like something.
Well, collaboration's different, that's where you get like a junior college or community college to work with
That's
high
right, that's
school.
different, but
Collaboration-
training is
Yeah.
rather mechanical and mundane. I think,
Professional development is stronger than training.
Let's call it professional development. Okay, how do we get the content?
If we take information technologies out and talk about implementing or doing something with electronic curriculum and content, which I think we need to have in there.
Right.
The word implement is a strange one because we're not going to actually implement it. Again, we're going to
Yeah, it is.
utilize it
Trained,
Right.
There's really two kinds of content. There's shared content, like there's one French teacher in all of Yavapai County where they leverage her, and then there's content like the schools using Harvard professors to teach their high school students.
Kind of the concept is,
that's
very well
collaboration.
over the internet thing.
Yeah, I think that's covered.
So it's,
I just have a question for you. On this side, usually when we think about education and broadband and you get into topic groups, they talk about K through 12, then community colleges and universities,
Yep.
and they kind of have distinct plans. Is this encompassing all those or limited?
Well, this top-level descriptor encompasses all of them. The 8 or so underlying action items do parse out by groupings like that.
Okay. So like for the state of West Virginia, we just did a small help with them on that side, and they use their small business program and their workforce training is centered around their community colleges. Do you guys do similar things?
Yes.
So they
Yes.
have a lot of
We do a lot.
workforce development stuff kind of in their education.
Sure, about here too.
No, we do parse it down to K through 12 versus higher ed, universities versus alternatives.
They all have different leadership processes and structures, and that's.
we'll pick that up under number 8, that's a good point.
But at the high level, we just want to have some terms that encompass the whole thing, the whole enchilada thing.
It's,
Okay, so here's what I have so far. I have implement, and we need to discuss the word implement, but implement, information technologies, and broadband.
I would just say
Okay, wait.
underlying technologies and not even mention broadband.
No.
Well, we could say tools and connectivity, but implement information technologies and broadband. Okay, so the tools and the connectivity, collaboration and professional development opportunities, and curriculum to promote improvements in education.
I would say get rid of the word information out of this.
Okay?
Yeah.
Information is information technology.
Technologies and
That's a very specific thing, right?
Yes.
We could just say connectivity. Implement tools.
Well, I might suggest underlying technologies and not even mentioning broadband at this level.
I would agree because it's computers, it's devices, it's the connectivity, it's all of that.
Okay, that shortens that.
The substitute for word broadband in these environments is a 21st century technology, communications technology. And what's happening especially in the schools, we heard this yesterday at a meeting that Brad and I attended. That is that the kids and the way learning is happening today is outstripping what the schools are capable of doing in their own technologies. It includes smartphones. It includes keypad. It includes just all
Kids have better technology at home than they have
and
at
so
school.
that whole word that implement communications technologies probably would be better than broadband.
Well, except
And
the word
collaboration training to promote education, improvement, and opportunities.
Galen, the word underlying encompasses devices and
Devices and
I
connectivity.
don't see the word underlying,
well,
right?
it's not changing up there. It's changing
I
up here
know.
on the screen.
Yeah.
It's not changing up there.
No. So you're reading
Not yet.
what's been changed. It's not.
Okay, I apologize.
So, the one thing that this does not do very well is show how much in harmony we are with the strategic broadband plan and the strategic school reform plan that the superintendent of public instruction is driving forward.
well, we can put that in the executive summary
And
and,
probably
I have this right
harmonize-
here, they're laying right here.
Harmonized with
And I'll make sure that those are all,
Harmonized with, yeah.
I'll make sure all that's
in the next section.
right. I got it all right here.
Yeah. So
Implement underlying technologies, collaboration and professional development opportunities, and curriculum to promote improvements in education.
I'm just wondering if curriculum needs a modifier. e-curriculum,
Electronic curriculum.
electronic curriculum.
Probably,
I think it does.
probably that solves that problem of distance learning, et cetera.
Everyone agree, electronic curriculum?
Curricula, I guess.
Is that a word?
We'll make an e-curriculum.
We'll make up our own word.
Will you read it again, Michelle?
Yes. Implement underlying technologies, collaboration and professional development opportunities, and e-curriculum, or electronic curriculum, to promote improvements in education.
So my only nitpick is before the plural curriculum, big curricula, if it's not just one.
And
That's so
did you leave the and opportunities?
No, I moved that up under professional development.
Okay. The only other,
Because we're really promoting improvement in education,
right,
right?
the only other, if it's too wordy, that's fine. I might have suggested educational improvement and workforce development.
Oh, I like that.
Because workforce development is
I like that.
certainly.
That's to your point.
There's only one other thing I would suggest in your groups about, like where you got the information technology and all this. And if your effect is to create an electronic community, education communities, because that's really what you're doing, is you're creating small groups that can connect together and do the other parts. You're missing the social media piece, is absolutely huge. So if you kind of had your first sentence that implement the technologies, broadband, and education communities, right? Now you're talking about bringing people together with the curriculum and workforce. You're now saying, look, we're going to use the technology that they got, bring in the broadband access, create small groups, electronic communities, and with the curriculum, improve education and workforce development. You got a very powerful statement.
So I believe the word collaboration does go to.
Can you say that slower so she can capture it?
Okay, but
Well, I think your
tell me
sentence is
how,
fine. Just
okay,
after broadband, I would just add and
but
create
this is old,
electronic
okay,
communities.
That's
so
not what you
we're
said.
not in sync with what's up there and what's on here.
The other key
Unless I
thing,
try to project, but,
the other key thing, and I think goes along with opportunities, is I think Keith kind of just touched on a little bit, is, you really want to improve the ability for people to learn, but you want to improve the access. So people that don't have access now actually have access. That might be something that you just...
Well, that's really
that's
under,
addressed under,
1 and 2
Right.
above.
It's up there to facilitate the build out of the other piece.
so this one's supposed to be
That's what we don't
focused on education. So we've got some themes like research and discovery, telehealth, education, as like
This is an
content
application,
type of thing.
not a transport recommendation.
So here's what we have. Implement underlying technologies, collaboration and professional development opportunities, and curricula to promote improvement.
Electronic curriculum.
Promote
Would you
improvement.
put curricula before the collaboration? You're talking about what you're going to implement, the technologies and the curricula, and then you have to have the collaboration and the professional development to
Yeah, I would agree that the
on that.
curriculum should precede the collaboration.
Why don't we just say implement underlying technologies and curricula to promote
And
improvement?
electronic curriculum.
Instead of underlying required technologies, rather than underlying, implement required technologies, electronic curricula,
Required implies.
the technologies that you need to make this work.
Yeah, but that's a changing goal, changing target, isn't it?
I don't think anybody's
What you mean by changing?
I'm just saying, what's required at any point in time.
Oh, I see, changing over time.
So delete the broadband and.
Okay, we're going to project what you got on your screen up there. So that
No, from
Anybody online?
No.
Do we have anybody? Okay.
That's good. We're doing it right in the meeting.
What else?
Implementing.
Implementing access to
We thought we were going to have iLink people on, and that was the problem. He was managing it down
original,
there.
but we don't have it.
My brother is the senior tax counsel in the city.
And you just have to choose which,
My grandfather
No,
was
it's
the highest
something
ranked
auto.
pastor in Steve.
searching.
Yeah, I think, things like required or state of the art, I don't think we can really define that.
Well, we can define it like I say, it changes over time, but.
You know about our government grant?
Hey, there you go.
Pretty
Now you can read
for a Mac.
actually type it.
Kind of vague as to what that means.
We need that camera.
I agree with Matt.
Okay, so here's what we got, and I don't think I've captured what we agreed to. So we said move curricula up, so we have implement underlying technologies in curricula. Collaboration, personal development opportunities to promote improvements in education and workforce development.
I would drop, opportunities.
And I would add back in electronic curricula, just to make it clear that we're not talking about ordinary curricula.
Does it have to be electronic?
Yeah, I think that's where the breakthrough comes from.
Well, okay, is it really electronic curricula?
Well, when we say E-dash,
Digital curriculum.
digital.
That's the term that's generally used.
And I would, after underlying technologies, put a comma and drop the word and. There's an and coming later.
Okay.
I like that.
Good job.
What do you think? What is the share of education now that we've completed?
Okay, let me ask you guys a question.
Reworked the whole thing?
Everything, we don't own everything.
The most important, I don't know if this is,
Implemented by empowering.
The recommendation could say the Department of Education should do X.
Right, okay.
we'll get into that, yeah. The biggest thing that's not in there, but it may be above, is schools don't have the broadband to do this. A lot of them don't. So do we need to put that in, or is that above?
I don't think so.
Oh, we've already talked about
I
it.
think that's said earlier.
I think
That's the very
underlying
first one.
technologies is the connectivity and the devices.
Okay, so we're
Yeah.
fine, we're fine. I like it. That's better worded. I think it's important we use the words that are, like Boris just said, that are understood. And you guys can help us with this, because there's certain vernacular that mean things that, I'm not as familiar with it as you guys are.
Well, when we get to the elaborating on this education side, we need to seriously look at what Ted has in that 175-page document.
I have it right here. We'll use it. I've got number 90.
Yeah.
What page are you on that document? I'm on
Somebody
page
just-
about 60.
I reviewed this son of a gun.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So you've read the whole
We're gonna put names by document.
More or less. I
Okay,
skimmed parts of it,
anything else
but I
in
read it.
recommendation 5? Does that look reasonable at the moment? On number 5?
You just have the word development there twice, I don't know if that's the ideal thing, but.
The word
Oh, yeah.
align somewhere along, if we're talking about, this is, we have one more statement that probably needs to be in here, and that's align with public education goals. Align with,
I think we'll get to it.
Yeah, I don't think,
That just makes it harder based on the K through 12 versus university higher ed level. The goals are different, the testing and metrics are different. I think we'll get to that when we break this down.
I'll get all that in.
As an action
Okay.
item?
So the point
Yeah.
of development is in there twice, though.
I've got all that,
We
I've
moved,
got it all in here.
digital curricula, collaboration, professional development, comma, improvements in education.
workforce development is in fact a term of art.
Yeah, so,
I got
So
the
professional
transfer.
development.
so it's professional.
Yeah, but I was trying to
We
say
put that instead of training.
professional and workforce development.
No, it doesn't
I
work.
don't think so. I
And
think
the-
it's,
and the Navajo Nation.
Professional development is
Yeah.
internal
It's about
to the
training.
Almost
educational
didn't get
system.
that one.
yeah, I'm
Workforce
opposed,
development
It's external, yeah.
I'm also opposed
You
to
probably
using
could've
the
done
word
it.
twice in a sentence, but in this case, I would make an
You could
exception.
have, yeah, I don't know how
the
we
word
would change
development.
it.
Yeah, because it's professional development and workforce
And then
development, they are both,
Both
Yeah.
terms of art.
yeah, they are.
Couldn't do jack without Russ.
Okay. What
Well,
do you
you
think?
can be
So,
flexible.
are we gonna stick with the word
My middle
implement?
name.
The Chicago attorney.
Are we gonna stick with the word implement?
Yeah.
Dare I ask?
Yeah, there you ask.
I'd say for now, we've done enough damage.
Okay. I'm game with
I'll
keeping it, but we'll keep it for now. Okay, here we are, recommendation 6. Continue state level and statewide leadership. Ooh, that's exciting. Sorry.
Actually, my quote, I think you had homework on that.
Yeah, I
That's
did,
good,
and the only change that I recommend making is sustain state level.
But the whole idea behind this is
Same.
our state really doesn't have a broadband entity. I mean, it was basically Galen for 8 years.
It's implemented.
I would say sustain and formalize and sustain state levels broadband leadership.
That's good.
Right, we don't have like a broadband office, and we're trying to create all these things. It's what part of our planning grants supposed to do.
So
And
formalize,
by the way, 6
sustain.
years ago, ATIC noted as its #1 recommendation in the state, as far as a broadband plan, was in fact to involve and engage leadership at a statewide level.
This was the Brad Trino document with the.
Well, it came after that. It was the 11 recommendations from ATIC.
You're on the
So
board,
we're
you
still-
probably wrote that document. Formalize and
And here we
sustain.
are, we have.
Here we are, still writing
Okay.
documents.
All right, so we want to say a state level?
I think state level and statewide leadership. And
Oh,
the
no,
word
you're right.
broadband
Yeah,
needs to
it's
be
fine
there.
the way it is. It is.
Statewide, state level and statewide broadband. State level and statewide broadband leadership.
Yeah.
Those are two different entities, because statewide indicates you have regions and local, and state level indicates you have
Statewide
some.
assumes sub-governmental.
Right. So,
Okay, so formalize and sustain state level and statewide broadband.
Yeah, I think that's
good.
That good?
that was the simplest one we've dealt with so far.
Okay, okay, this one,
where's Mike Whipple? Ask Mike Whipple.
yeah, Mike. I unfortunately, okay, so here's what I did for Mike. So Mike did send some updates from his committee, and here's how I interpreted what you sent. Maybe this is wrong.
Well, let me start off with saying, I skipped over the TOC. I failed to give you
Oh, okay.
that, and I only gave you the bullet points.
Which are the action items, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So, at the beginning of this meeting, while I was sitting here, I sent you an email
Oh, all right.
with Bill Boland's raw thoughts on it, and I think his first paragraph might be appropriate for the TOC.
Okay. All right.
Something like, use policymakers and communities to promote the standard of living and economic wealth with the region. Nice and general? Question mark?
Okay, hang on. Is it in here? Point
Right
me
there,
right
right, starting economic
Oh,
development.
right here?
Yeah, maybe just that paragraph reworded a little bit for the.
This statement right here.
Well, we're not a paragraph at this level, we need, a sentence.
So is that a starting place
It is a
for the headline? Mike?
Say again?
Is that line that she selected a starting place for the headline in the table of contents?
Yeah, I think just reword that, take out a couple, and it's nice and general, and then in the bullet points, we get into a limited set of specifics.
Okay, so let's give it a shot here.
Yeah, insert it right under it, let's see how it plays. So,
Okay.
Go from passive to active here.
Right.
I think you could say drive economic development by actions.
It needs to have broadband somewhere in it.
Yeah, I know, I'm just trying to make it into
Drive economic
a similarly structured, sentence.
Yeah, you want an action word at the front, right?
Economic development policies.
How about drive broadband-related economic development by actions of policymakers?
Sure.
So,
Is broadband the mechanism or is broadband?
It's an enabler, I'm not sure, it is when you look at site location, it's a checklist item, can I get broadband? So you're right, it's not all about broadband.
Well, you don't need the last part of it when you say drive economic development,
Right.
that's just redundant.
It
So,
is.
you know. Right, just,
yeah, so just put a period after communities, right?
Something like.
Yeah, for this level of the document, that's exactly right, we don't need.
Well, you're really trying to provide adequate broadband capacity. That's what drives economic development. Like in Prescott, they can't do call centers there because they don't have the capacity. That's what we got to get out there, and that'll drive the economic development.
Though it goes past broadband capacity, for example, the NTIA grant and other earlier work, some of it was for funding e-commerce training for small businesses, helping them get websites.
Right.
So it's not simply about the broadband, it's about skill development
Right.
for our business community and NGOs.
Promoting adoption, that's the promoting adoption part of the three
Yeah.
legs, but that can't even take place until you get the capacity out.
What are we really trying to say here about economic development? What we're saying is that broadband has a role to play in economic development.
For both availability and use.
Okay, so what about our plan do we want to make a statement about in that regard? Because I don't think, well, maybe this is true for all of them, but how much of an action can we really take to impact economic development? Or is it something more about enabling and tracking or
HEIC's meeting on March 15th starts with representatives of NACOG and county government. So we are hoping to catalyze action, inform them as to grant opportunities. You know, it's not just broadband availability. It's
both, but broadband availability is critical.
Absolutely, but like with telehealth and e-learning, we got past using the word broadband because we're an application layer.
Well, as we go forward with economic development, we will be focusing on broadband development, incorporating it into the strategy of economic development.
Okay, why don't we just say that? Incorporate broadband into an economic development strategy.
Into an economic development plan or model.
Yeah, that opens it all up. That's perfect.
Okay.
The capacity we deal with.
Are you looking at this, I guess, on a by region basis?
Yeah, we have.
Yeah, we have 15 counties, we have 11 economic regions, we have 4 NACOGs, whatever the hell they, councils of government. So the state can be parsed by 15, 11, or 4 entities.
Okay.
So yes, it is region.
So,
But the main distinction is there are rural regions and then there are the urban regions. And we're mostly not focusing on the urban regions.
so what did I say? Planning, incorporate broadband.
It could focus on, and it could relate to urban too, it's not just rural, right?
Incorporate
And that's-
broadband
you're right.
availability and tools.
Why are we're talking about drive state economic development strategies through effective broadband applications?
We can be promoting, for instance, adoption and utilization for economic development
Well,
even in
that's-
urban areas. I mean, that's
Right, Mike, that's the other part of it, because this is economic development and outreach.
Right.
The outreach part is
Right.
also going out and aggregating demand for broadband
yeah, absolutely true.
and helping the providers come in. So it's a tough thing to get into one sentence, obviously, but
Right.
Well, under it though, we'll have 8 sentences, and under each of those we'll have paragraphs.
We are limiting our impact to rural.
Utilizing broadband to promote regional economic development is also the adoption piece.
outreach, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. 1 and 2 go to capacity and use.
We didn't use a specific word capacity, but
Nothing else.
Not here, but I think down below we do.
I think a quick comment about 6, I know I'm jumping back a little bit.
Ugh.
State level and statewide is just very confusing to me. I would think state level and regional makes more sense.
that's a good
A little bit clearer.
State level,
Yeah, we gotta get,
state level and
we gotta
regional?
get Galen
regional, yeah.
plus
Because
that.
this is a first read, not.
Yeah, statewide bothered me a little.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we'll take this opportunity while Galen's out of the room.
I brought it up.
You waited, good timing, exquisite.
Take that cursor down, don't let it look.
I know, okay, we're really down here, I don't know what happened up there. So, okay, where are we down here? So we have, I've been sort of,
You've just been capturing phrases.
I know, because I don't know if we've landed on
Mike,
Well, go
give
ahead
it
and
to us,
throw 2 words, and outreach in after economic development.
where at, where, here?
Yeah. And outreach.
Okay.
Actions of policymakers and communities to promote standard living.
actions of policymakers is just too wordy. I mean,
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so too.
just policy. Policy is what we need to say, by outreach and policy. Policy recommendations.
But
Well,
it's all about
we don't need to
policy.
mention policy.
I don't
No,
think
it could
we
be
do.
programs. How about policies and programs?
Programs,
Programs, I like that.
policies, and
Policies
programs.
and programs.
Um,
And we've,
via community engagement. Period.
Well,
No.
and then we don't need it to promote standard of living and economic
No.
growth in the region, because that is economic development. We'll
Yeah.
explain that later.
Yeah, though I might, rather than economic wealth, just the term economic vitality.
Well, if we take it out, I think that the suggestion is just to take it out.
That whole phrase.
Be that
We take that out, we
Yeah.
just, okay, so drive broadband related economic development and outreach policies and
Through
programs.
policies and programs.
Yeah.
And via community engagement.
Okay, but are we driving economic development and outreach, or are we driving policies and programs?
Yeah, it's those two.
Economic development and outreach, I would say, through policies and programs.
Okay,
That makes sense to me.
And via community engagement.
That's nice and
Or
not
just
little.
policies, comma, programs, comma, and community engagement. How about that?
Yeah, I think that's.
okay, all right, yeah.
Policies, comma, programs, comma, and.
Good.
Well, now you're being inconsistent with your Harvard comments there.
Yeah, you shouldn't have a comma preceding a name.
I know. I was just
That's
saying,
that's a changing standard.
Okay, so drive broadband related economic development and outreach,
The one area where
policy programs and community.
legally,
Broadband related should
Is
have
or
a
is not
hyphen
what?
in it.
Okay, all right, yeah.
it requires
I'm
the
surprised
comma
it didn't give me
and
a.
Yeah.
and legally.
Yeah.
That's what they taught me in law
I guess I read too much of that.
Okay,
You gotta quit that. Okay.
I'm gonna move this up, and,
So Mike, we're doing your homework for you.
we're done with recommendation 7? Okay, very well done.
Thank you. Recommendation
Okay,
8.
now we're on 8. Okay, support the public safety community in enhancing operations and capabilities through broadband and wireless.
Broadband
Mark,
and
this has
wireless
your
is
name
a
back.
strange phrase.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know this is through, well, we don't even need through, that's what all this is, right?
I think the word align here.
I don't even think we need to say through broadband
I
and
don't think
wireless.
we do either.
Okay. I think the word align here, the federal government has come up with substantial amounts of direction and money that is going to dictate to the public safety community their standards.
Right, but we
How about-
felt we still needed to acknowledge and describe
Right.
those overriding
Yeah.
principles.
So what we want to do is align the broadband infrastructure in Arizona to accommodate the,
Yeah, and that's, to some level, in what I gave Michelle,
Right.
that's later in the document.
So I would add the one word though, the public safety community in enhancing broadband operations and capabilities.
well.
But it's more than that.
But there's a two-way, through shared facilities.
Well, that's in there too,
Yeah.
that's too much. The only reason I'm reluctant for broadband is when you talk about interoperable radios,
Right.
it's not necessarily broadband, it's voice.
No, but the
Well,
part that we're gonna contribute to it is backhaul and.
And they are,
This goes a little broader.
and they are struggling right now to, in fact, bring that alignment into the broadband world.
Yeah.
And that's what X25 is all about.
The real issue that's in debate right now back at the federal level, according to Michael Britt, is about the sharing of broadband facilities. Historically, they've always wanted dedicated facilities. They're finally.
How about if we added the word enhancing operations and communication capabilities?
That's good. It still doesn't capture the notion though of sharing facilities
Well,
as
through
opposed to
sh-
using.
through-
I don't think so.
In the recommendations draft recommendations I supplied, it does.
It does, okay, so.
Through sharing underlying
Well, there's one specifically about towers going both ways.
Well,
It's all in the, that's all in the
Yeah,
details.
That's all underneath.
this is
also
broad
not
enough,
very
because
conduit.
this is kind of like,
That's not in there
this
yet.
is like e-learning and e-health. This is about supporting public safety,
Mm-hmm.
not about their broadband operations, but about how they conduct their support.
one of the things they discovered, and we have discovered, and this is Arizona-based, by the way. This is unique to Arizona more so than other states. And that is that our infrastructure, current middle-mile infrastructure, inhibits their interoperability, ability to go interoperable.
But words about adopting standards, again, are a level down.
It has nothing to do with standards. It's the actual availability of infrastructure has caused them not to be be interoperable. And so the flavor, and actually in my discussion with Chris Comiskey this last year, the underlying grants that are part of the interoperability process for public safety and first responders needs to accommodate or take into account whether or not broadband infrastructure is even available for them. And so
one of my recommendations below goes to robust, resilient, and redundant middle mile.
So is that reflected in the statement above, though?
I believe so.
So this says
If their
support and
communications
alignment.
capabilities require such, it's detailed a level down.
So we're saying support and align with the public safety community in enhancing operations and communications capabilities. I think that align with is key.
I was gonna say the same thing. That's the
Yeah.
problem with the whole thing. Nobody's aligning. Everybody wants their own system.
Right.
Right.
Well, there are
We're
several.
Well, so we should say, insist that they align with us.
Well, we'll take the first step. in that.
Exactly, that's what's gonna happen.
So-
So you added the word enhancing.
Will be
sounds like
nice,
you're trying to
they
improve.
approve.
And you didn't.
Align and enhance.
Well, what I was thinking is if listening to your conversations, you got a couple things you're trying to do, because part of the technology is dying, part of it's trying to evolve into what an integrated broadband solution is. And maybe if you said like, support and align the public safety community in enhancing and leveraging operations.
Yeah,
What happens there is now you're saying, look, we're trying to integrate and do it for purpose.
Yeah, and the value is.
Not only
the leverage.
improve it,
Right.
but fix it, and that value is where it's shared. Because there's a lot of initiatives, if you look at Seattle, for example, they're trying to do it with the White House and a couple other ones looking at it. Charlotte's just come up with one, and they're trying to get the public safety stuff to go in the cell phone networks.
Yep.
But there's a lot of issues with that.
Oh, there are.
And that's what you're doing, is you're really trying to trade things off. Right.
So I like that. We add the word enhance.
Well, we added
Leverage. Yeah,
Glad you're here.
that's good.
in enhancing and leveraging operations.
We don't need to mention any funding here, but maybe we're also needing to align funding for citizen, or as a least cost.
Okay, we'll
That
be
should
in
probably be
that.
down in one of the.
Get down in those
Yeah.
recommendations, that's where we'll start addressing those things.
Okay, 9, leverage broadband to reduce energy consumption and protect the environment.
Well, that has to do with smart energy, what do they call this?
This is his area of expertise. What do you think of that wording?
Smart grid is the.
It's
that
not,
some
it's not
art?
just that, though, it's also using broadband for telecommuting, for
Yes.
distance learning, for telehealth, for teleshopping,
It's
to replace
taking vehicles off the
transportation,
road, right.
to substitute for oil-based transportation, to, reduce energy consumption, reduce global warming. So
Leverage broadband would cover all that. Telecommunications is right under leveraging broadband.
it's helping you do your energy consumption.
The one thing here too is there's consumer aspect. So you're actually providing a benefit to the consumers as well. I don't know if you wanna put that.
But I
It doesn't
agree with
say,
Henry, when we come down a level, there's probably a.
Yeah, when you come down a level, you go into details.
This could mean for anyone.
all of that, and there's a group that's telework offsetting transportation.
This could mean for the individual, it could mean for the organization. There are, energy reducing plants, right.
Yeah, I got you.
Any issues about using leveraging?
Save money for everyone.
Any issues with the word leverage?
Use it in a pre-sentence.
Sure,
Do we have any, we've reached out and touched the public safety system.
I'm sure there's.
But we know that there's a lot of availability, and the industry is pretty well taking care of it, but they have, the word smart grid comes into play here somewhere along the line, and there are some opportunities there.
So what I like about this statement is that it's understandable.
Okay.
People understand reduce energy consumption, and they understand protect the environment.
And
it's broad
later we'll
enough
tell them how.
to say, to
All right.
include different things around
And
the
the
town.
thing too with this is, I mean, there are other times besides, just smart grid and the energy companies, but I mean, even on the transportation side, through your Department of Transportation, there are ways to reduce energy
Yes.
consumption and things like that.
This could cover a lot of things.
A couple words that they use different than reduce, because a lot of times you think about just, I have to cut it back, and really what you're talking about is optimizing. What you're saying is there's a need to have these things, and really what you're trying to do. So if you go like EPA and you look at like some of the things that they're doing, they're not telling you stop doing stuff. They're just saying use it efficiently. And so they use that word optimize because now it requires you to think about it, measure it, just in time, delivery, and more.
By the way, when the light rail was built in Arizona, in the Phoenix, Maricopa County area, they had no consideration for availability of connectivity for citizens who rode on the light rail. And that was...
But they did manage to bury a little bit of fiber along the trackways.
They did, but it was not for...
Not for that
I like
purpose.
optimize.
I know.
Efficiency.
So-
People love efficiency.
Should we use optimize instead of reduce? I kind of like
Sure,
reduce
yeah,
because
yeah.
it's clear.
Sure,
That could be reduce and optimize, right?
Optimize, I know, it's
Optimize?
I don't know, I'm still, optimize is a little
Let's just use
little
both.
difficult for the average person to.
We'll just say, we'll do this.
Well, optimize
We'll compromise.
Optimize does...
Optimize does include the use.
good.
I mean,
Well, that's
I
what
know it does.
smart grid energy systems do, by the way, is the
Yeah,
optimize.
okay.
That's good too.
Okay, so we got through 9 of them. Now, this last one,
Then you start thinking.
Oh, this is the top 10?
this is,
Can I make a comment though? I think we need to think carefully about how we order these recommendations, because I don't think they flow
okay,
necessarily well. I think the ordering is important.
okay. So can we get, like one conversation?
Yeah, I'm just saying, I think we should order the recommendations in the optimal way to make the biggest impact, so I don't think,
I guess I'd
the
like
way
to
they're
see
ordered
that
right now is,
that changes, so I
Okay.
can read them, if that's
Okay.
ready for that.
I think we're ready for that now. Hit the button.
Well, so we have changes down, let me just see what impact that has if I do that.
yeah, be careful.
You can at least show a final.
But you could just select that page and accept changes to that
For that page.
for the selection.
Did you move that sub
You know, I did.
Okay, great. Yeah,
I
I see.
think I can do it, because I don't think down here there's much. All this stuff,
That's just stuff I added.
which we're gonna
this
review
red.
anyway. Okay, I'm just gonna accept all. Somewhere in here.
Time of this meeting.
Then when we're done.
12:30. What? 12:30?
Well, keep the changes on. Okay, here we go.
All right, here we go, guys.
Okay, so I agree with Henry that the order may not yet be optimized. So for example, I think the application-oriented stuff should fall below the infrastructure. So,
I like
no, I like
facilitate the
number
build out
one
as
and number
one.
two, but I would move up number 6
I'd move up number
and
9
number
also.
7.
I would put education, if you put the applications together, put education, health, economic development, and
the research one. It was,
Well, I don't think of economic development as an application. So I would actually suggest moving 6 and 7 up to be 3 and 4.
Yeah, I agree with that. Given the high
As a start, I'm not saying that's all.
I know,
but
at least 6 to be 3 and 4, I agree with that, 6 and 7.
Then I think you could bring 5 above number 3. And scroll down, what's number, okay,
Henry, you had a reason to
I'd
say
move
what
9
you did.
above number 3.
yeah, well, I'm just saying, trying to keep the applications together, trying to,
Okay.
you know.
Did you have a particular one in mind that you didn't think was high enough on the?
Well, I felt education should be, you know, up before probably telehealth, just in terms of order.
Okay, so,
A little more, you know, broader thing than.
If you don't put them in alphabetical order, you're playing with.
Yeah, but telehealth is, to me, the first application, e-learning, recommendation 5 is the first of the applications.
Right.
Telehealth follows. Now,
I,
telehealth could be above number 3 still. Why don't we try that?
Well, number 3 is.
3 goes with education.
No, but 4, if you move 4
We're
above
talking about
number 3,
to.
then you have applications together.
But number 3, as currently numbered, is not an application. It should
Right,
probably be
that's why it's gone lower.
I think it should go lower, yeah.
Well, it has gone lower.
Yeah.
All right.
3 really goes with education, whatever.
And I think that's true, because when we talk about the one that's numbered 3, we talk about its applications to both education and big science, which is represented by number 5 in a way, and number 4 in the way they're numbered now. I think that's better. I don't know if we're done.
Is there a 10th, or do we decide 9 was the optimum?
No, the
I don't know.
sustainability flows through other areas,
We'll
not
have to
a
decide what to do
standalone
with that.
recommendation.
That's how the federal, yeah, that's the right order. 1 and 2 are the right order. That's where we should be.
So we're saying build it out, increase adoption, establish leadership, drive economic development and outreach.
Then
And we've got
applications,
education, telehealth,
research,
research,
innovation.
energy optimization, and public safety.
Great.
Better.
Now, do you want to give these things slugs? Do you want to, like, under recommendation number 1, just go build out, colon, or like under education, just start education, colon?
Maybe.
Random?
Just
Rather than recommendation 1, yeah, it could be.
Yeah, just have a bold.
You could have something bolded.
What do you think?
Well, those are,
my initial reaction was, are you saying as a state that public safety is the last item in your list?
I said alphabetize.
So I just went back to, I think it's if you kind of look at the, kind of what you're trying to get across from all those things with it, particularly being a border state with fairly important
Oh, the money is
Homeland
certainly
Security
with the public safety. That's where in the last 12 years, well, since 9/11, actually, 10 years, that's where the money has been to facilitate.
But he's just saying.
One of the issues there is that they're taking care of themselves, so are we going to drive it in support and align with it?
And people
We're
are
much
It's
less
also the
likely to
hardest
own
to
it.
deal with, and it's
So I
also
would
the most
maybe
successful.
move,
Right,
they're really our priority though.
It's not a,
Yeah,
I would-
our broadband.
I don't think you can equate public safety at the level of education and health and economic development. I think
With regard to broadband, yeah.
I think it's gotta be down.
That's
down
probably
there.
the one we have the least ownership of.
Right.
And
So
that's
that's
why
Russell,
actually we're
Russell
support
Pierce.
and align, not drive or catalyze.
former senator.
And
Former
if
senator.
you,
running a badge you just don't understand.
if you drop this enumeration and go for that slug idea,
Then you don't, it doesn't
kind of
matter.
diminish this
Yeah.
prioritization of it.
So what about putting the public safety above the energy? Just the bottom two?
Well,
Is public safety, 911, fire and rescue,
Yeah,
all this stuff?
but we at this level have the least influence and control of that particular area.
That's another function someplace else, right?
is number 9, is that where we're gonna put all of our telecommute type things?
No, some of it. I think I think it populates other areas. But as it relates to reducing the use of office space, reducing the drive time, yes. But as it relates to being productive, it would show up other places.
Economic opportunity.
As will mobility, which isn't a separate recommendation, but probably shows up strongly in 4 or 5 of them. You know, that it's a mobile world.
I would suggest we leave it like this for the moment. I'll renumber them. I would wonder if we can't somehow try to, in our messaging, impart the fact that just because it's 1 versus 9 doesn't mean it's
Right.
higher or lower. We have 9 recommendations that we want this ourselves to focus on, and
Not listed in
I think
yeah,
that's
not
right.
in priority order
I think that's why
necessarily.
naming them with a
So
bold.
yeah,
together.
maybe we'll figure out some other way to
Instead of-
do
Have
that, but I'll
we
leave it.
infused in the document, the word mobility now, it really is, the next 10 years, I think we'll see most of our enhancement in mobile communication. Are we leaning to be future-looking in this statement? And do we have mobility as a high enough priority to reflect that absolute change in our...
It doesn't show up in the table of contents as a word, but my assumption is broadband is both fixed and mobile, and that it will percolate all through many of the recommendations for
Should
mobile
the
aspect.
word mobility show up as a concept in
It would have come out.
the table of contents?
I'm suggesting no, but you're welcome to suggest
I
otherwise.
say no, and I say no because I think it can preclude, if that's the right word, innovation. I don't know what's more innovative than mobility, but I don't know what innovation is either. So to leave it open and instead of restrict yourself with this, although it is a 21st century word, don't restrict yourself with youth.
When we talk about telework, it's going to be about nomadic and mobile as much as fixed. When we talk about telehealth, it's going to be, devices you're now carrying on you as well as...
And the doctor getting information.
Yeah.
So maybe we can work that principle or concept into
Many
our
of the
introduction.
individual...
Or,
Yeah.
it is a
Impact on the fact that it's going to tax the broadband capability, so therefore we need to get fiber and expand out.
Right, the backhaul situation. But I think you're exactly right. The executive summary can make a strong point about the evolution of mobility.
Actually, what you just said, nomadic and mobile, as well as fixed, probably is, in that order, will be infused in some executive summary with regard to broadband.
So I'll just give you another little piece that comes in from an industry perspective, right? You can't do everything you want with the wireless spectrum that's currently done. So all it really does is it's a collection device that allows you to get in, and it has to have a robust fiber network underneath to allow all this stuff to work.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think when you talk about these things, it'd be very important to describe that, because you got to be a little careful if you just say mobility, then all of a sudden you're telling all your money to go to wireless out the backhaul. You tell it's going to be a little different. So it's really trying to get both together. And that's why your ecosystem, if you look at the plan, the ecosystem was to recognize the need for all this.
Frankly, we have. And if you were to even look at the number 1 recommendation and the sub-bullets, a lot of it is about middle mile fiber for exactly that reason, both wired and wireless backhaul.
That's a good point. Those are just
got a lot of wireless.
We want to make sure that
Yeah.
our outline does.
We just can't get it done otherwise.
Okay, so I have a couple more questions.
Land ownership in this case.
We're at 12 o'clock. Technically we have another 30 minutes. So, couple more things. We have another suggestion to include statements about financial stability or sustainability. Do we want to turn that into a recommendation? I think the suggestion was that it was some kind of recommendation. Or, if not, where do we place this? Is this important to represent?
Lease of conduit goes under number 1, recommendation, a level down. I don't think sustainability, it varies by telehealth, by application, by e-learning, by infrastructure. Sustainability is many faceted.
So
I think I know what you're saying, and I think it's very important that we begin to focus the public on the needs of this new infrastructure. We spend lots of dollars funding transportation. We spend lots of dollars funding other vital infrastructures. We have not even begun to turn as a public policy to identify any funding of except in the area of public safety, the dissemination of broadband communications. It is unique to American life, as a matter of fact. The rest of the world does use public processes to fund their infrastructure communication. We don't in America, for a number of reasons.
Or we don't get at the same scale.
However, I think there is an understanding that we need to encourage the proper funding of infrastructure as a matter of public policy. And somewhere that's not in this statement.
Well, I think the very things listed there for financial sustainability and the kind of general call to consideration that you mentioned, that ends up in the executive summary, like the mobility evolution. And these actually subordinate to a couple of the specific recommendations about the sustainability within the infrastructure deployment environment, the sustainability within the education environment, the sustainability within the telehealth environment.
And we parsed that issue in Arizona as we developed the idea that public right-of-way can be in fact utilized for the public good in the area of communications. We didn't say to fund the actual communications infrastructure. We just said to use public right-of-way. There are other things we can do. For example, the idea of at the civic level of cities and towns to again use public rights-of-way there to also enhance the availability of broadband.
I still don't think the category of financial sustainability rises to be, in and of itself, a 10th recommendation. I just feel it percolates in 4 or 5 or 6 of the other 9 recommendations.
But we don't have the word funding listed in any of the other 9.
It will come out in the recommendations. For example, education is a whole different world of funding.
And sustainability than infrastructure deployment.
It's unique to the different category. How you fund telemedicine will be different than education.
Yeah, I guess I have a little bit of hesitation with even going anywhere near funding in the plan, whether it's new funding or sustainable funding, because that in itself can just be consuming. And what we're saying is these are the goals we want to set. We'll have to work on the funding, whether it's one time or ongoing, as we, execute our actions. And those actions may come with the need to get funding, like grants for...
Funding is an anathema right now in the legislature.
Yeah.
Well, it is.
I would suggest you cut and paste this back under recommendation 1 and get it out of the table of contents entirely and we'll deal with it. Most of
Sustainability
that is for
does
recommendations.
not,
not really just
you know, it's there, but it's not going to stay with one bus.
Entire thing,
It does, but most of the ones specifically mentioned there are more about infrastructure than telling
I
where
think
you
those are
learn.
just ideas. So I think what I'll do is I'm gonna plop it here in the bottom,
Okay.
other
Holding
stuff
zone,
for now,
yeah, that's what I call a holding
And
zone.
I'm just gonna keep it down here, and then we can decide for each one if we
Where
want to go with
permits.
where they go. Because I think those were just a list of,
Well, under the executive summary, we talk about why government leadership is critical. We might want to change that wording to why government leadership
and
funding is
critical.
critical.
Or
You know,
sustainability.
Right.
Okay, that is increasing the public's perception of the importance of broadband.
Yeah.
That's basically going to,
I'll just,
We move that list to the bottom of the document as a holding zone.
yeah.
I think most of what's listed currently applies to recommendation 1, which is infrastructure. But then the concept will percolate through other.
I would probably say, just from looking at some of what other states are doing and looking what's happening on the federal side, that, it's really kind of important to analyze and take a look at the sort of the federal sources of funding and also look at other opportunities. But right now, one of the big things that's going on the federal side are the changes to the universal service programs.
Oh, yeah.
And those are going to have dramatic trickle-down effects to a lot of the states and a lot of the carriers that operate within. So I don't know if that should be a recommendation or a high-level goal, but that's definitely something that is a big
I
priority.
still think it falls under recommendation 1. We would plan on talking about the Arizona Corporation Commission and the transformation of our PUC, the Arizona Corporation Commission's own Universal Service Fund, to track and enhance the federal reforms.
Absolutely.
I still see that as being under number 1 than a standalone.
the only other thing I see missing out of your first pieces, or two things, I guess.
Okay.
You talk about sustainability, but it's got to be in regards to affordability. Because if you look at all policy, basically, I can make sustainable, but nobody will buy it and use it, right? So if you look at number 2, the first one is how do I get there, and that's the infrastructure, and all those are very important. The second one is use and adoption. And the number 1 issue that comes in is reaching groups that have a little different language or not as tech savvy, but more importantly is affordability. And that's really where all the state funds are at. So you have to say somewhere in that 2 that you look at the affordability. The state has an issue. Is it affordable for our economy and our businesses? And secondly, is it sustainable? Because that's the 2 matchups that you're really playing.
Sorry, I would push back that it's not sustainable if people won't buy it. Affordability is inherent in the concept of sustainability. It's not sustainable if it requires 3 subscribers and $1 million each. It's not sustainable.
Exactly, and that's where your balance is between the
Right.
2. So I think that's why, if you look at sustainable, the commercial argument will be as nobody's going to go there because it's not profitable enough. And
Right.
then you have other business models that aren't trying to make as much profit, right? So this sustainability issue is really you're interested from a state to having everybody have some access in a reasonable way. And how do you do that piece? I guess the other thing I don't see in your goal measure, maybe that comes under leadership, I think it's very important to maintain your state map and measure. If you don't measure this in a common way, right, that's used out, whether people like it or don't like it, you don't really make results, because now you're all arguing about issues and concepts, not facts.
No, the map shows up in there.
Okay.
Well, the measuring is there, but we don't have any.
Right, though, that's so.
Yeah, but we'll get to that. So I think
Okay.
once we agree and we stabilize our recommendations, then we'll have to think about how we measure that.
But also roll down below the recommendations where we have the demographic section outlined. Right there. See, Appendix A, broadband availability and adoption in Arizona. That's, what we didn't like about the California plan is you had 60 pages of California broadband demographics before you got to the recommendations. And we decided to reverse that. So the recommendations do include some things about sustaining the broadband map and measuring, but the primary positive of a snapshot follows the recommendations in their exposition rather than preceding them.
And I think the point that Mike's making is we're now, when we go around and talk to some of the states, they are not quite aware that their map is actually going to knock them out of funds they got today. So if you don't get it kind of accurate and you can't know where to fix the problem, you're going to shoot yourself with the right foot's going to shoot, the right hand's going to shoot the left leg, right? And you don't want to do that.
We hear that from providers, they, you know, we hear that.
Yeah, one of the things, this is my opinion now being expressed right now about what I think is going to happen because of governmental service funds. I think that the federal government will freeze out private investments because everybody's going to be chasing the federal dollars available, and just like VTOP froze out private investment in broadband in the last 4 years because everybody waited to find out where those projects were, who the winners were going to be.
And I don't see them freezing it out, I see them shifting the equation. Hopi Telecom, 8,000 tribal members, 3,000 households, gets $2,000 a year from Universal Service for a landline. They don't care about the $20 they charge the customer every
$2,000 per line?
Yes. Yeah. And the revisions in the program are going to shift the equation of broadband. There'll be winners and losers, but there won't be a stop to investment, is my perception.
Okay. Well, anyway, so Mike, because I feel that way, I think a corollary to that is in Arizona we need to develop some independent processes whereby our priorities will be met no matter what the picking and choosing that goes on by the federal government. And either we align with that 100%, which is very, very difficult.
Or we choose to complement it.
Or we choose to complement it and have our own program.
Our own gap analysis.
Our own gap analysis, our own processes going.
I agree.
And that has to do with setting the stage for local processes and local funding and local
which is great stuff, good thinking
right.
That will definitely cover
the macro level down to the micro level of what we're
trying to do. So let's focus on two other areas before we finish. I would not recommend diving into the actions right now. I don't think we have the stamina for that at the moment. What I do want to just throw out on the table is, okay, so we've pushed some of these off to the task groups for the details. But there is still a question of how we continue to vet just the general list of recommendations. Anybody have ideas, suggestions? I mean, I would encourage everyone, the groups that you're related to, Oris, I know you're doing this with ATIC, to just share these and gather as much input as we can in our various constituencies.
Well, I think you should actually go to the DAC at the high level with these and say, you know, we showed you a slide the other day, and here's our evolutionary next step. And
we just introduced a new mnemonic here, the DAC.
The DAC.
The Digital Arizona Council.
Right.
Now,
you don't think people will call it DAC?
I love it. I love it. I think the DAC.
And I don't mean digital. I don't mean digital to analog converter when I say DAC.
That's what comes up for me when I hear DAC. Yeah. Those of us who do things like digital to analog.
The biggest thing we need to push is the federal government is going to increase the definition of broadband speed dramatically by 2020. You think of it as a 2-lane highway now in terms of the required speed. It's going to be a 10-lane highway. Maybe that's an overstatement. But
no, it's going to go up to 10 megs probably over time. They're going to try to drive it.
I think it's when that is.
Well, that's the question of when. But if you start to look at it, they're going to drive it up to 4 to 6 very quickly. And then try to get to 10.
And I think that's what drives this urgency.
We have a single list
because it's not a stagnant thing, right? This
right.
industry is exploding.
Okay, so back to where we vet this. We just met with the Digital Arizona Council, so the group's not going to meet again in face-to-face for another 3 months.
And we have a member right here that we can dump on.
Well, and a couple of us are, So we can certainly push it to them electronically and start to get feedback, or individually.
We have two members of DAC right here.
Yeah.
Though I would suggest
dangerous
line copying them so 30 or 80 people don't see every bit of feedback.
Well, here's the other approach. So that group is made up of a variety of roles. We're probably a couple of the safer members.
Thank you.
So I would almost suggest we take them either in groups or even as individuals. I'm thinking particularly of Cox, CenturyLink, Valley Telecom. We've got the task force leads engaged, like Dr. Pitt and some of the others, so they'll have seen this. But some of the other ones, like Department of Transportation, I mean, I'm thinking we should just take them up one by one.
So you want to do it by subgroup, by subdivision?
I don't know, I'm throwing it out as an idea.
This task force is supposed to come up with the draft. You start throwing it up there, it's gonna be a cacophony. Like she said, there's so many interests on it. Then they're gonna start writing it. Let's put our plan on the table and they can start editing.
Michael, where are we with a SOQ for the one or two consultants to assist?
Where we're at is we are just in the process of getting the list of consultants that are possible from SPO, and by the end of the week we'll have the actual quote out on the street.
So Michelle, I think some level of stakeholder interviewing could in fact be there rather than at the committee volunteer level.
Yeah, we can interview them. I'll go interview them, but, let's put our plan on the table.
Well, but I think we have,
So you're just saying
we're not ready.
it's too early to do that?
Yeah, you're right, it's dangerous.
Well,
It's gonna get ripped apart.
I think that the.
Don't you have more problem if you give them the whole plan without vetting the recommendations?
Well, I think right now you vet the 9 recommendations, not anything underneath it, and you say, what are we missing? Or, do these concepts, are they,
Are we missing
are they
higher
cogent? Are they
recommendation?
viable, and we let them kind of help wordsmith or bounce back to us.
Provide them a time limit. No, the next 2 weeks, please. Within 2 weeks, get back to us about anything that you see and per these recommendations at that level.
And you say, we're working on the stuff under it, but it's not ready for prime time.
And if you have thoughts about the stuff under it, share them.
Share them,
All right,
absolutely.
well, that's safer.
Yeah, that's good, Focus on these recommendations.
Right, I mean,
If they
not.
wanna add some other stuff, that's fine, but.
Or if they want to say, well, where is this covered? And we get to interact and say, well, that's a more granular concept that we absolutely anticipate, and here's where it goes. Or we say, that's great, no one's been talking about that,
As long as they're clear that
Or I
there's
believe
a whole
it's
set of
broadband
action
is a
items
great
under
time
each
to
of those
find
general recommendation areas that are being worked.
And I think we can say that, and I
Effective
mean,
with the broadband is a
we said as
better way to
such,
time it money.
we said as much at when I sort of gave the overview,
Well,
that.
Michelle, you are a member of DAC, okay? And Emerson is also a member of DAC. One question is this process, does it have integrity? And the answer is yes, we're asking them to be involved.
And we have been asking individual application task groups to be involved.
Yes, and so I think we're on a good road of integrity. I think we need more because it's our group. We've been adding folks as they want to be added, but because this is an Arizona plan, we got to make sure we cover all the bases.
That's true.
And so.
Well, actually, Patty and Susan are also DAC members.
That's true.
Right, and
They're on this team
and they just
also.
couldn't make
Correct.
today's
Right.
meeting, but they've been sending comments.
Right.
in. Absolutely.
Okay.
So you have 4 DAC members, and you have direct involvement of 3 of the other 5 task groups.
So what might be good is to ask each of us to share this out, just like we talked about a minute ago with our group, and record that, or just make a list of who this gets put in front of, because that will be the integrity later when somebody says, well, how come I didn't have a chance for input? Or we can say, look, here are all the people, maybe we included in the plan, all of the people who had input to this process, so that it's a very strong, valid, vetted set of recommendations and an ultimate plan. Okay, so I'll put that out in an email and just have folks kind of push it to their groups, and we'll see what gaps there are, and maybe I'll ask folks to contact people. Okay, last thing I want to do is, can we please take on these documents individually, put our names by document, so that we're not all having to read every document? you guys think that would work, where, like, I could read.
You want to sign these documents to enter?
Yeah, I mean, like, I have the Arizona Technology Council report.
That's a workforce
The workforce
education.
report, where I could read that and maybe pull out some things I think are relevant or concepts that might be related. We could each do that with.
All of that for the action items under each.
It could be the action items.
So actually, in that particular example, I think it's more for the demographic snapshot in Appendix A, that there's stuff in that report.
Well, it could be. It could be that there's data points we want to include. It could be that there are action items that we want to tie to, or maybe we're missing something that we haven't thought of yet. So it's just to scan these documents in a way that each of us could bring back some what we think are relevant.
I do also see that in part as an assignment, maybe not in total, but in part for whatever, consultants. Because one of the things I encouraged Mike to include, and he has, was the review and summarization, distillation of other state plans. So that was, that's already kind of baked in. And I think some portion of this can come from there. Though, for example, Boris would be a good individual to distill some of Ted Craver's documents since he's been an editor on it. Just an example on that.
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Can we put names by the document?
Sure.
Can you put your names, or should I put your name?
Well, you can put my name by Ted's document if you want.
The Grand Challenge?
Yeah. And that should take care of my assignment.
I'll do the Arizona Technology Council report, unless somebody else wants it.
I'll do the National Broadband Plan.
Can I chime in on that one too?
Yes.
There you go. You want to?
Brad and.
Merry Christmas.
I will take on the factor and other broadband grants and discussions with regard to Arizona Palencia and Russ.
Why don't you put Jeff and I on what you call PSIC, public safety, because I've been out there looking at a variety of documents and just generating my distilled recommendations.
Okay, Mark and Jeff. Did you know you were going to get an assignment? Okay.
I think Boris and I can do these education docs. They're not that long. You want to do them together?
Which
one? Ted, you, me, and Ted. These ed docs like the P20, Race to the Top. It's all our committee anyway. So
Those need to be gathered together, by the way.
True.
The Grand Challenge and the P20 stuff probably ought to be put together.
I've got the governor's.
These two right here.
Yeah, and I got the four cornerstones. Kind of goes with that.
Okay, so that goes down here with the Grand Challenge.
You should all have links to these documents.
Yeah, we've got links.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for sending that.
There are.
Who's going to do the four corners? Brad?
I emailed it to you earlier today.
I can do the strategic plan. I wrote it. And,
Where's that one? State strategic.
strategic IT. It's
You want a distillation of California's,
Sure. Are you going to do that?
Yep.
Okay, what's the name of that document?
advancing California's leadership telehealth policy.
California's.
And they sent us a copy of a bill.
Telehealth
Documents.
document. Okay. Ralph. Okay.
The strategic plans are in a.
I'll join you on the workforce review. I've been involved with the tech council.
Oh, okay, you guys have.
Mike, can you handle for this group, the governor's
Got it right
four corner?
The strategic plan and ADUAs
Sure, I'll do that with Brad.
separate from.
Brad?
PSIC has its own plan. It has a state operability.
Put your
Right.
name here,
What's the
right?
plan again? I've actually read it.
You put your name here, right? You and
And
Jeff?
actually, Mark and Jeff is there, not the one below that.
Yeah, and it'd be
I will do the
Right.
changes in E-rate
Brad.
also, reimbursement.
Brad. I wrote those 1 years
Okay,
back.
changes in E-rate, where is that?
That's the one right after, the next one down
Oh, right
below
here.
is- Yeah, right there.
Okay.
Actually, the biggest change there is probably in,
You're
and
perfect to
the
do that.
sixth order. That's what's happening right now with regard, so, you might add the sixth order there.
Changes in, do you want to just say USF and E-rate reimbursement?
Yeah, well, the sixth order, for the
Wait.
E-rate,
So you can reshape that and make it say what you need it to say to represent your document.
As I remember, the governor's four cornerstones of
You can
reform.
add T on the bottom one.
Increase broadband development counts, that's not right?
Well, yeah, but there's some other stuff in there that,
You're gonna send
Okay,
this
what
out?
do we have, yes, I will send all this out. So what about the state's strategic IT plan and ADOA's
Yeah, I'll do
strategic
that.
plan?
I can do that, 'cause I used
But
to
who
write it.
doesn't have a document that needs, just absolutely
Who
needs a
needs
document?
one? Yeah.
Ted?
Like, Ted?
Yeah, Ted's
Well,
retiring.
Mike, it's not on this list, but I think we should look for some examples of broadband economic development impact studies that may exist. And we floated some links to a few around, but I'm wondering if that might be one that we add.
What is it again?
Hasn't Mike already been looking at that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's why I'm codifying
one
it.
by McKesson is probably the best.
Broadband and economic development studies.
You wanna do the state strategic plan?
Telehealth, that also.
Well,
No?
why don't you add telehealth to the California one, not to the economic development?
There's economics.
Mike Whipple. Mike W.
McKesson plan, and there's two others. I'll introduce you to
Okay, now,
Mike Curry.
are there
many
people,
voices.
are there, I know, I'm losing track of who's volunteering here. Are there people that we think would be best suited to read some of these other documents that are not in the room? Because I know Patty has said, tell me what I need to do, and I'm sure Susan would be happy to.
Patty's been more interested from Intel in the economic development, so I would suggest maybe she could be added to Mike Whipple with her assent, there.
Okay.
I mean, Intel is doing a big seminar on health, so she would be good with that also.
Okay, so I don't know which one. How about states?
I'll do that. I wrote them these past years, so.
Okay. What about the P20, race to the top?
That goes right up with the other
That goes
education
with the
stuff.
other education.
It's all part of that.
with Ted's
There's kind of a cohort of education ones.
Okay.
Going from
Oh, and then the P20
all those
council?
go together,
All right,
yeah.
got it. I don't know why.
For all education, yeah, we'll take care of them. Or is Ted Brad? Our committee anyway.
Okay. What are we missing here?
Anybody else wanna read the state strategic IT plan, or?
We have do we want, Mark Masterson is not a part of this,
He's too busy. Don't even
but,
go there.
are there people that he's working with right now who are?
From the
Yeah,
Department of
yeah,
Education.
I know him and I talked to him and we'll make sure and talk.
Well, the race to the top is part of that too. And then I'm on the Data Governance Commission.
Yeah, I got you.
So we'll tie that in there too. Okay, we got names by everything. If there are other documents that we need to look at, we can put them on the list, and then I'll put a call out for
There's
me.
actually two, coming up, there's the, and you're probably aware of this, is the, GigaU.
Right, DigU,
And there are the other state
I was gonna
strategic
say,
plans
the other state.
that I would suggest they're part of the scope
Okay.
of work. So other state strategic plans, just parentheses,
Consulting.
SOQ consultants or something.
Michelle, as I accumulate links to these other documents, should I notify you and Jeffrey, or just Jeffrey, or?
Do you wanna be the collector of links and documents?
You can do the bibliography.
It'd be
easiest to just keep it me.
Okay, that he's already got all of it.
Distribute in and out.
I think we're done.
Very good. I don't know, we have two
Good.
minutes.
Hold
I
on.
know, okay, so here's the thing, we meet again in 2 weeks.
Right.
We're gonna keep going. I think we'll focus on action items next time. And I'm gonna invite the leads from the other task groups. Do you guys still think that's a good idea?
Yep.
Okay, so I will invite them to join us at least at that meeting and maybe beyond.
I would suggest in return, for their invitation to be here, they also have the action item to revise as their task force feels appropriate, the specific recommendation, and bring that to you and us.
And so that leads to another point about the action items. We'll have to think about how to fill those in. Okay, so we didn't assign
Yeah.
all of them to groups. and so I know there's at least one that has like no action items. So maybe we can talk about that next time.
Just talked about where to put a broadband.
Okay,
Cool. That's true.
we're done.
Good job,
Good.
thank you,
Yeah,
Michelle.
lots of progress.
Pilot project, we didn't get
That's true.
The chairperson has disconnected. The conference will now end.